Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode. We really appreciate you joining us. This podcast really shows us how we can all learn, live, and thrive off of each other. By sharing our knowledge through our conversations, we will impart some knowledge whilst learning ourselves how to progress even further. Here is your host.
I'm your host, Danielle, and welcome back to another episode of the Mom Files. On this week's episode of the podcast, we are talking to Caroline Nadine Helsing, author of Unapologetic, Tales of the Original Party Crasher. One daughter's journey of retelling her mother's life through the clues and memories left behind. If you haven't read it, it is an absolute must read. Caroline was so much fun to talk to, and I really hope that you enjoyed this week's episode. All right, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you doing with the lockdown?
Oh, I'm pretty good. We're pretty sick of it.
Oh my gosh. Well, I can't wait for this all to be behind us.
I'm sure.
But
so we'll dive right in. At the beginning of the book, you talk about reaching out to a medium to kind of connect with your mom. What sort of led you to that?
Oh, yes. Yeah, let's start with that. So a friend of mine originally told me about her. And I love that sort of woo-woo stuff. I think it's fun. So I reached out and, I went into it thinking, I'll take what she says with a grain of salt. But, I think there's a part of everyone that yearns to know what that their loved ones who've passed on are in a good place, and I have to say it was insane how she picked up on literally her essence to a T and knew things about her that no one else would have known, and she told me when she saw her, she was wearing these little butterfly pins in her hair, which were among the items that she had left me when she passed, and she always used to wear jewelry in her hair. Yeah. In fact, the photo that I used for the cover of the book is of her with what I'm pretty sure is a brooch that she somehow secured into her updo.
It is such a glamorous photo.
That was her, even going to the grocery store. So, yeah, I don't know. It was nice to get confirmation that, she was okay.
So when you reached out at that point, had you been thinking that you were going to write a book? Was it something that had crossed your mind?
Yeah. So when I did. I had started to embark on the journey of writing the book, and I wanted her to be okay with it, and I did ask that question, and I got the okay, and I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting way to start the book too, so I thought I'd include that conversation.
Yeah, it definitely it grips you from the very beginning.
How much did you get? I know you said you started.
So I have done the first 3 chapters, and then you had mentioned to read chapter, I think it's 31. Yeah. 31 or 32. So I've done that, but I plan to, even tonight, I was reading Harry Potter with my daughter before we go to bed. We have that on the ebook, and then we close Harry Potter, and my daughter sees the front cover of your book. Yeah. She's just like, oh, that lady is so beautiful. Do you think we could read that one next? I'm like, well, let me finish getting through it first. Then we'll see.
Yeah, they're I think it's child okay, I think.
The stories are fun, and it is just such a mother-daughter relationship is just such a pure relationship.
Yeah.
So I think it will be something that she enjoys, and it's something I'll probably read more than once because your writing is just very captivating.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah,
you're welcome.
Told me that her friend and her daughter are starting a book club with it. And I thought, that's so soon. Her daughter's a little bit older. I was like, wow, that's a great idea. I love that.
I love that.
Honored. Yeah.
So taking a step back a bit, this book is filled as I was saying, which is beautiful, fascinating stories. Do you remember growing up and in those, actually living those moments, what your feelings were?
Yeah, well, as a young child, your immediate family is your world, right? So whatever they do, however they are, it's just normal.
Yes.
And of course, my mother, would wear sequins to the grocery store. Don't all the mothers do that? But then as I got older and I realized, she's not really like my friends' moms. But I always loved her company. And then the older one gets, you appreciate it even more. But I knew she was different. Like I mentioned in the intro, she wasn't a member of the PTA. She didn't teach me how to cook or make a bed with hospital corners, But I always had fun with her, and I always felt loved. So yeah, I have really good memories of my childhood.
Wonderful. Have you always been a writer? So I noticed in your bio you mentioned some acting, some modeling. So obviously you've always been artistic.
Yeah.
But have you always been a writer?
I have always been a writer with myself. Yeah, I've written so many journals as a child. I have volumes of them. So I loved writing. I loved English. I loved writing in school. But really, this journey was really all about me just wanting to tell her story. I'd attempted to multiple times actually throughout the years. And after she passed, I was just called to finally do it. But prior to the book, I was a freelance writer for the local papers here. So, I did have experience doing that. Yeah.
So what was sort of that final, like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to write this book, I'm just going to put it all out there?
Well, like I said, I'd always wanted to tell her story. In fact, I have some notebooks that I had come across of me starting, and me. I have some recordings of me asking her questions, and so I think it was a seed that was always in the back of my mind. But after she had passed, and after my journey with her, it was one of the chapters that I had, and I talk about in the end of the book. I had actually taken her ashes to New York. I promised at her bedside that I would take her back to all of her favorite places, and I kind of did that. And it was a story within itself, because it enabled me to see the city that she loved so much through her eyes. And I just had a lot to say. And to be quite honest, it was a way for her to still be with me. I missed her, but it felt like she was kind of still there because she was always in my mind.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful. So how do you think, or how do you hope that your mom would feel about the book now that it is all finished? Especially if you would sort of sat down and interviewed her at times when she was still here. How do you think she would feel about the finished product?
Oh, I'm hoping she likes it. She always loved getting to know people and loved when people wanted to get to know her. And she loved talking about the stories from her past and her youth. And in fact, I remember when she was sick and in hospice, she would tell, the nurses would come in and try and, take her vitals and whatnot. And she'd just start talking about her childhood modeling in New York and how fabulous this was and how fabulous that was. So, the funny thing is too, she used to read all the time. There were always memoirs and biographies, usually of old Hollywood movie stars. And one day I just stopped my tracks and I realized, oh my gosh, she used to read memoirs and biographies all the time. And now she's gotten one written of her.
Yes, how special.
Yeah. So I think
What is your favorite chapter?
Well, I have a couple. I really, really enjoyed writing the third chapter, Double Trouble. It was about my mother's best friend, her best friend Marilyn growing up. They met when they were in grade school, and it was just fun, writing all of the about all the adventures that they would have and all the trouble that they would get into, and so that was pretty fun. That was really fun. And I did a lot of research because, obviously it took place in the 50s and 60s. And so that was just kind of fun. And then I actually, one of the first 2 chapters that I had written are of the journey that I had with her when I took her back to New York. So that was kind of nice. God, I have a few. Now I have another one. I told you to read The Packing Up a Life. That was kind of cool. That was interesting for me. Just, talking about the things that I had found. I had mentioned it's like when, in the packing up of her life, I was unpacking her life. So it was revisiting all of the stories that she had told me, growing up, and actually seeing them in front of me. I mean, when their stories are kind of wispy, right? When you actually find that photograph or that program or that whatever it is, it just becomes more real. And then, of course, I'm going, oh, what else didn't she tell me? I wish I knew this, or I wish I knew that. But I am grateful for the information that I do have. Yeah.
And it was reading that chapter, it very much, I think anybody who has lost a loved one, it does take you back to that moment. I remember when my grandma passed away, who was, I loved her as much as I loved my mom. Like, she was just the most extraordinary woman, and going through all of her things and packing up this house where she had 13 children that she raised. Wow. And just, you find the old newspaper clippings and the old wedding photos, and then it just takes you back to the stories that loved one had told you when they were still there, and you just have more imagery to go with that. Right.
Completely takes you back. Yeah.
Yes. And so I did really appreciate the way you wrote it, because then for me, it took me back to that place, and I was like, I don't remember about that enough.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Is there anything that you learned about her that you maybe didn't know, or even exploring more of something that you knew a little bit about and you weren't expecting to learn about an incident or memory?
Yeah. The things that I learned about her were more of moments and details, and came from, the people that I had talked to her, like her relatives, my father, her best friend, Marilyn. My father, it was so special because he's a pretty private person, and, not one to share his emotions, and it was interesting because I was starting to get to know, the man behind my dad, and their history. And it was incredible how much he remembered. I mean, he remembered the moment that they first met, and what she was wearing, and the color, and what, what I mean? And that was just because I wanted to write this as accurately as possible. So grateful for that. And again, I learned a lot about her from her best friend, Marilyn, and there's so much that I didn't know. So that was just really cool. And it enabled me to talk to people that I would normally, not have. So I was grateful for that, sorry.
I was just saying, we often we know our parents as our parents.
Right.
So to have that opportunity to talk to childhood friends and get to know that, because she had an entire life and was an entirely different human before. So just to have that opportunity to almost become friends with that person as well.
Yeah.
It must have been really beautiful.
I kind of chuckle because she wasn't entirely completely different. She was the same. she was not your typical mother. but yeah, it was so fun to hear, the stories that she hadn't told me, and to confirm the stories that she had told me, yeah. And
so how did your dad feel, or how did Marilyn feel when the book was all finished and they got to read that?
Yeah, I was the one person that I was concerned about more than anyone. Actually, the only person I was really that concerned about was my father. I wanted him to be, I wanted him to be proud, and I wanted him to be okay with things that I wrote. Because again, he is private, and I was really concerned with how he would, just take everything that I had written. Not that there was anything bad at all, but just,
you're putting his life out there.
His life out there as well. Exactly. And it was so nice to, when he finished it, he called me up and he just said the most complimentary. He said honey, it was amazing. And, and he's a man of few words. So it was really nice to hear that. And, just he mentioned certain parts of the book where he's like, you did a really good job, So it was all good.
My dad is also a man of few words. So when he gets those few impactful words in, it goes straight to the heart.
It does. Yeah. Yeah. So I was happy to make him proud.
I like that. So what is a trait or something about your mom, whether it be something that you want with your own family one day or just in life in general, sort of a trait about her that you hope to possess, or maybe that you already see in yourself?
Well, I will say that because she believed so much in me, and because of that, it gave me the confidence to believe that I could do anything. So I very much appreciate that trait that she had. She had a lot of confidence, but she had this confidence that she was the most fabulous thing that walked into a room. So that would be nice. I don't really feel that I definitely don't feel that way. Especially,
we could all use a little bit of that.
Living in sweats for the last year. But she lived life with, she stressed experience to me. So, if I ever wanted to try something, she was never like, oh no, sweetheart, I don't think you should do that. Or maybe you should, maybe you should try something else. she was always just really supportive. So I appreciate that trait. Because it's enabled me to, like you kind of saw from my bio, I've done quite a few things. I feel like I reinvent myself every few years. And I guess I've always just felt the freedom that I could do that. So,
which is amazing. And I think more people should have that mentality, because we only have one life. So if you're not doing something that is bringing joy, then why are we putting ourselves through something that isn't going to
exactly
be beneficial to ourselves?
Yeah, I agree. Try and follow.
So do you have another project that you're working on? Are there any other books up your sleeve?
I do have some ideas. Right now, I'm actually working on putting this book into a large print format. So I feel like perhaps the era of the people that might be interested too, I can appreciate that.
Yes.
And I've been asked to put this on Audible. So I feel like that's going to be a fun journey for me. I've never done that, but because of my acting background, I think it's blast to do. In fact, as I was writing it, that's kind of how I write. I sort of talk out loud, especially the scenes. So I'd say those are the two projects that I'm going to be working on immediately after this.
That's exciting. If this were to become a movie, who do you think would be the best person? Who do you envision playing your mom?
So funny, people have asked me that. Every single time, I don't know why. She wasn't exactly like Catherine O'Hara, but she's the first person that comes to mind. That character Moira. I think it was.
Yes.
My mother was just. I mean, Moira was just like fabulous, right? But in a kind of like obnoxious, or just like an oblivious way to her surroundings.
And the most lovable.
Yes, and I love that about her character. So my mom had a little bit of that. She had a little bit of, Holly Golightly from Breakfast at Tiffany's. I mean, she had a little, as everybody does, right? And not just one layer. But for whatever reason, at least the later years, I think it would be a blast to have Catherine play her.
Yes, she's just so amazing.
I'll put that out into the universe.
Yes, let's manifest it. So would you like to play a short game of Open Up?
Sure, let's do it. Yeah.
I keep hoping that if I play this, eventually the wine label will sponsor the podcast.
Okay, well then you have to put that out there.
Yes, we'll just manifest everything tonight. So what are 3 things that you cannot live without?
Other than the obvious food, water, and shelter. Let's see. I'd have to say my dog, definitely. She's right here staring at me on the couch. My dog, my husband, and my phone. Oh, my phone. My phone wasn't working this morning. And I guess it just needed to be. I thought it was charging overnight, and it was just.
Oh, I hate when that happens, when there's just like a little wiggle to the wire.
It didn't even have any juice at all. Like nothing was happening. And I was like, and that's when I realized I'm just so used to this thing. I mean, it tells me the weather. It's my internet. It's my phone, my email, my everything. So yeah.
Especially in the last year.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I felt like very often pre-pandemic, my phone could be missing for a while. I wouldn't notice it. And now I'm like, no, I need to know what's going on in detail.
It's your link to the outside world.
Yes. What is one experience that everybody should have at least once in their life?
Oh, man. The first thing that came to mind is to travel. I think that is huge, and getting to expand your horizons out of your own kind of little world. I have some friends that have never been off the island of Hawaii, so I can't even imagine. I mean, it's fine. They're happy, but I don't know.
That's because you went to the University of Hawaii.
I grew up in Hawaii. I was born and raised in Hawaii, and I did go to UH.
Okay.
Yeah. And
that's crazy.
I grew up traveling, so I think that it just opens you up to different cultures and ways of life, and
I think it also gives you a good sense of empathy, because you also, as you're traveling, you're experiencing other people's cultures. And then it just gives you that opportunity to be a bit more understanding of the world outside of you.
Yeah. I mean, I love where I live, but I also love getting away. And then when I come back, I love coming back,
Yeah.
So, and actually some of the trips that have given me the most empathy have been the ones that I used to do a lot of volunteer work. I was involved with the Rotary down here, and we traveled to Peru and Mexico and India. And I mean, talk about seeing other cultures and the way they live. And, it just gives you appreciation for what you have here, but also it makes you look at it. It just really makes you think. I mean, I'm thinking about when I went to India, I was among the last group to give polio vaccinations via vaccination.
Oh my goodness.
Or sorry, via the drops we would put the drops in the mouth. And yeah, it just felt very, like you were just doing some good in the world. But when I was there, we saw just children that were just living in the craziest, the craziest environments. I mean, there's I remember walking into, one of the days that we were doing our polio drops, it was a tiny little room, there's chickens everywhere. There's a cow in the back room. You know what I mean? It's just, and everybody in the kids are just laughing and you know what I mean? And just happy and playing with rocks. And then, you come back here and, you hear kids that are like, oh my, whatever, like what?
Yeah, my video game's not good enough, or my internet's not working fast enough.
Definitely.
Like, there are some kids playing with stones and cows. Like, I think you're going to be okay.
So you know what? I think my answer to that would be everyone should do some kind of volunteer work in a situation like that.
Yes, absolutely. So this is a fun one. Our eyebrows, facial hair.
Okay.
We have sparked some good debate in the past.
I'd say it's like the hair on your head, or it's like the hair on your face, right? But to me, the term facial hair is more like, peach fuzz or something. A guy has a mustache or a beard. I don't know if I would call it facial hair.
I am with you 1,000% on that. And my husband's like, it's hair on your face. That is clearly facial hair. And I'm like, if I'm going to prank somebody, never in a million years am I going to shave their head or their eyebrows. That's cool. Maybe I do something funny across your beard because that's your facial hair.
Yeah, I don't think eyebrows grow back the same. So that would be.
No, I'm like, that's dangerous territory. Yeah. Do you think that it is possible to cry underwater?
Yes, I think it is possible to cry underwater. It just makes the level of the water higher. Depending on how many tears you cry.
I'm like, I'm just going to try going underwater with like a good breakup album and see if I can just let out
measure
my
the water level.
Exactly. What is something that you collect?
What is something that I always say I collect memories, not things. So yeah,
I like that.
And then I used, in terms of something tangible, I used to collect anything that was Eloise of the Plaza related, Eloise. Yeah.
Yes.
And actually I write about that in the book too, because, I grew up where I grew up in Hawaii, there was a hotel called the Kahala Hilton. And my mother used to, it was basically like our second home. We used to go there all the time. And my mother used to say, you're like Caroline of the Kahala, Eloise, because she loved the Plaza Hotel, obviously. And yeah, so.
That's a sweet memory. I like that. By default,
I used to collect all of her Eloise things.
So this is the last one, but what is the weirdest way that you have made friends with someone?
Ooh. Well, I remember working on a set in LA. I think it was the City Guys or something. And we were playing ballerinas, and I just talked to the girl next to me and I said, "Hi, I'm Caroline. What's your name?" So I don't know if that's weird, but I don't think I have a problem just talking.
Just approaching somebody.
So,
well, you seem to have a very welcoming, open personality. So I feel like you attract good people.
Thank you. I try.
Where can people find you?
Well, on the social platforms, I have Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and I make it easy. It's just Caroline Nadine Helsing author on all of those platforms. And then I have a website that links everything together. It's CarolineNadineHelsing.com. So that.
Perfect. And I will make sure to link all of those in the show notes as well. And then the book is available on Amazon.
Yes.
And is it available? I'll look and see if for Canadian bookstores. I know obviously I have the ebook, so it is available in Canada here. But is it in physical stores?
It's currently just on the Amazon platforms now, and it actually is available on the. It's international, so it's available on the in the Canada Amazon. What is it? Amazon.ca. It's available and on all of their international platforms, Japan, the South America, but Amazon.com is just easy for everyone has access to that. When it's available, if and when it's available in stores, I'll be sure to blast that because that would be nice to see it on a shelf, I think.
Yes, just the big cover would look. I can picture the what do you call it when you're staging like your
the end cap or like there?
Yeah. Like it's just the perfect photo for that.
Thanks. My mother with the big brooch in her hair.
Yes. Just funny because you were mentioning earlier being in your like sweatpants for the last year. And I just see your mom with like when we're all having to wear masks, having like the most like blinged out, beautifully glittered, bedazzled mask.
That actually reminds me of she had to have a cane when she was you'll read about it, but there was a part in her life where she had to have a liver transplant, and she got really weak while waiting for it, and she just hated having to use the cane. I mean, it was just like, oh, I got to use this ugly aluminum cane. And I remember taking it from her room and secretly bedazzling the cane for her. My hot glue gun out and all my little sounds. And man, when I gave it to her, her eyes lit up and she just loved it. But of course, like the little stones would fall off and like, you know, people would run after her, pick it up and go, ma'am, is this yours? You know? But yeah, she would have bedazzled her mask for sure. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining the Mom Files.
Thanks for having me.
It was so nice to chat with you and nice to get to know you. Stay safe. Have a great night. And thank you so much.
You're welcome. It was fun. It's really fun talking with you. Thank you.
Are you somebody who loves accessorizing with original pieces? I cannot recommend Pretty by Paige enough. Her beautiful clay earring designs with quality backings have left my sensitive ears feeling stylish and fancy. She even has a mini collection if you're looking for your littles. Use code Danielle10 to save 10% off your order. Thank you once again to Caroline for sitting down and talking with me. Since recording the episode, the book has become available in large print on Kindle through Amazon. So please go ahead and read it. It is such a good read. Soon there will be a book review coming to littlesummerbee.com. That's this week's episode of the Mom Files. Don't forget to join us next week for another episode. Show us some love by subscribing to our podcast and follow along on Instagram at Danielle.Delaney613 or visit the blog at littlesummerbee.com. Thanks for listening.